My subs has been wondering this for a minute, but I never really explained why. But I'm going to do it now. This is why I despise MCU fanboys. See, I have many reasons, and they are huge reasons. But firstly, let's start with my encounter with MCU fanboys. See, it all started in Captain America Civil War. I saw that nonsense where Captain America beat Iron Man, the most bullshitly executed scene ever. And I'm just saying, like, bro, that was so trash. Like you mean tell me that you completely turn your back on somebody who was notorious for not giving up in a fight? You completely turn your back on him. And I brought that up in the MCU fanboys. See, I didn't really shit. I did not distinguish fanboys and fans at that time. So I was like, okay, here we go. Guy comes in, says nonsense, saying, well, Tony was angry. You were angry. You were this. No, I would not have done the same thing. What I would have done was kept my eyes on Cap. That's what I would did. But it's never enough with them. Then like Homecoming came out, and I was talking about how shitty the movie was because it was so boring. Like, see, if it's anything about Homecoming, I am harder on Homecoming because, like, when it first came out, MCU fanboys, again, I didn't distinguish it back then. MCU fanboys were out saying that it was better than Spider-Man 2, all that nonsense. So that boosted my expectations to the max. So when I watched this movie, I was thinking that I was probably gonna see something better than Spider-Man 2. And when I did, it was a boring mess. Like the movie was so boring. Like Jesus Christ. I just I got the DVD to that movie. I bought it in the year it came out, 2017. And from 2017 to 2022, I only seen it 5 times on DVD. That's how boring the movie is. And plus, it's not only that. Though all three of those MCU Spider-Man movies, they get old pretty quick. Like you can only watch them a certain amount of time till you give up. Like No Way Home. I'm gonna say it for another video. But yeah, they get old. But back to the subject. I was like, I was speaking what I disliked about the movie. And, I got attacked by MCU fanboys. And, at first I thought they were joking. The way they were taking up for a movie, I thought they were joking. But then eventually I realized that they were serious. They were unconditionally taking up for this trash ass movie. And so I came to this point where I'm like, oh my gosh, they really think like this. And, for a second, I was scared to speak for a second because I knew that they were going to get on my head. And I'm like, wow, does like anybody feel the same way that I feel without getting blasted? And then I came to this realization that like there is people feeling the way I feel, but they're not saying anything about it because they don't want to be blasted by MCU fanboys. See, I compared this exact situation with that Miles Morales situation where a lot of white guys don't like to critique the character because they don't want to be called racist. Like, it's that situation, just not race. And eventually I came to a point where I just didn't even care anymore. I just started speaking what I wanted to say. I didn't care. I was ready to argue. See, whenever you argue with the MCU fanboy, they're gonna come in saying complete bullshit. You you easily beat them 9 times out of 10. But it's only a matter of time till their fellow MCU fanboy companions come in and they start liking this comment up, and then they start saying some bullshit and they're just agreeing with each other. There's not really no I'm feeling this guy more, no, I'm feeling this guy more because this reason. No. They're automatically going to side with the guy who has the same mindset as them. It's more like a hive mind concept, especially with Reddit. And so after that, like that that brought me down with MCU fanboys. I came to a point where I was like, okay, these guys are just annoying as hell. Like, there's no actual way to argue with them because most likely they're just going to wait on their friends to come and help them out with this argument because they're not making any sense to begin with. And it's not as far as arguments go. You also see them, on social media spoiling people and all that bullshit, showing pictures of certain scenes that people haven't seen, spoiling and trying to say that, oh, this was so emotional. Like, bro. And then, like, if, see, most of them motherfuckers don't even read comics. They just hear from other MCU fanboys who actually do read comics. And they bring that point to them. And sometimes they immediately try to Google shit and all that. They do it every time, bro. If you ask me, I honestly think like at least 15% MCU fanboys actually read comics. And yet they still say dumb shit. But here's the thing, like, you can see this a lot, especially on Reddit. What I wanna say, somebody said something that like most of the MCU fanboys are normies. And then like an MCU fanboy came in and said, who cares that we don't read comics? All that nonsense. Like, it's ridiculous, man. Like, they just got something to say for everything instead of just taking the goddamn L. To them, their movies have no flaws whatsoever. But then, like, when you got movies like Endgame, which was boring as hell until the end, and No Way Home, which was consistent with plot holes. See, movies like that, they cannot take up for those type of movies because they have so many errors. I beat so many MCU fanboys because they could not make up anything to defend themselves. And I enjoyed the hell out of that because I finally cornered this fucker before his homeboys came in, obviously. But yeah, these are the same people who plague everything by Marvel. See, before No Way Home, they were trying to trash the Raimi trilogy and all that shit, just like those little Bazin fanboys are trying to trash the Nolan trilogy. Those MCU fanboys try to trash the Raimi trilogy, and then like even when you watch, the MCU Spider-Man series, you're just barely all just staring at a wall or something because after a few years, they're not brought up ever again. That's how it is. And this is relevant to the IGN rankings of those Spider-Man movies. I think they had Homecoming at number 2, and Homecoming, that I would watch The Amazing Spider-Man 2 before I watched Homecoming. I was much more entertained with The Amazing Spider-Man 2 than Homecoming. Sure, say Amazing Spider-Man 2 sucks, but I enjoyed it in the end. I enjoyed it far more than Homecoming. Homecoming is just that boring. Far From Home is boring. No Way Home is garbage. Like, all three of those movies are bad, but MCU fanboys are going to come in, push their nonsense agenda. And also, let me include this. See, when 2017 Wonder Woman came out, when they realized that the DCEU was giving them competition, that's when, see, they came in trying to trash the DCEU, and not only that, they tried to pose as DC fans just to trash it from within. And it was so easy to destroy them. Like, I immediately brought up a comment, dude didn't even know what I was talking about. And that was, you could literally just Google it and you would have found it. Just like that. I mean, like, here at this form of desperation, they will never admit to taking the L. That's typical MCU fanboys. They do it all the time just to boost their agenda, their Marvel agenda. And, other than that, like, I think I got all my reasons out. Now you know exactly why I despise MCU fanboys. They're fucking idiots. They like everything about the MCU. And, yep, I think that's pretty much it. Nothing special to those guys.